Thank you very much. Senator Cornyn.
As I said at the beginning, I think the refugee resettlement program is a good model. For a variety of reasons, I think it works, and certainly willing to work with my colleagues in the administration in making sure that more people get access to this program. But I'm struck, General Burns, by the differences that Mr. Caney described, and I'm going to ask him a little bit about it too. It is confusing between refugees and people seeking asylum, and then those who simply come in, let's say, to the border, and if you're an unaccompanied child, there's another process. There are the gotaways. It's a hodgepodge of different programs and different ways into the United States. But it strikes me, General, that the protections that, for example, Mr. Cisse and his family went through in terms of vetting and that sort of thing, that it's completely absent when it comes to people who show up on the border from anywhere around the world and simply make a claim for asylum. I think Mr. Caney said the test is basically the same: credible fear of persecution for these various categories. But because of the volume of people coming across, they're simply released into the interior and given a notice to appear for a future court hearing. So in the refugee program, it seems like there's significant vetting. There's no self-selection process. My understanding is about 35 countries are accept the vast majority of these refugees. So somebody can't say, I'm a refugee, I want to go to the United States. They get assigned to one of these countries. Certainly the numbers are dramatically different. 125,000 cap for refugees, and as I mentioned, about 5 million migrants have presented at the border in the time that President Biden has been in office. And then, of course, there's the fact that there's a lawful process for refugees, and the process by which people present at the border is largely in the hands of transnational criminal organizations that care about nothing but money. I've heard it expressed that they are something this way, that they are commodity agnostic. In other words, anything that makes them money, they will do. Arms, sex trafficking, drugs, and the like. So, as I said at the beginning, I support a safe, orderly, legal, and humane system for legal immigration, for refugee replacement, but that's not what we're seeing at the border. And then finally, General, you talk about the global reach of this problem. I was in El Paso recently on a night patrol with the Border Patrol, and we had 2 young men presenting with passports from the People's Republic of China. And how they got to El Paso, I don't know. And what they did once they were released, nobody knows. So do you consider the current chaos and lawlessness associated with what's happening at the border to be a national security risk?
Yes, Senator, I do. And I think you kind of draw out the point that if we have a consistent vetting process, because if they're all going to enter the United States, you would want to have a consistent process for that entry to make sure that nefarious actors do not enter the United States or people that don't meet the criteria that we have. And the challenge we have is that without that consistent vetting, you have what we used to call, when I was a young lieutenant, the challenge between speed and security. So you have a very large number jamming up the system. You need to get them worked through the process. So security gets reduced to get the speed through that process. So whereas if you could have a consistent vetting process for all, then you would know you were in a good shape or a better shape. Everything has an error rate, but at least you would have a consistent process to follow. And also you would create friction for the cartels in terms of how they'd be able to get it through. And as I said in my opening comments, the problem right now is the cheapest way into the United States is through the cartels. And it's a little bit euphemistic, but you could almost argue they're the largest travel agency in the world in terms of processing people through. As you mentioned, with people from China, they come from all over the globe because it's the easiest way to get in with the lowest bar. So, but if we have a criteria vetting that is standard, we can handle that process and look through that. And then I would say the other challenge is just supporting them as they come through the process as well, to make sure we put them in the right place economically, though, so they can be successful.
If the chairman will allow me, I have just one quick yes or no question for Mr. Cisse and Mr. Canny. The administration, the Biden administration, has recently proposed a rule they call the Circumvention of Lawful Pathways rule that purports to establish a rebuttable presumption against asylees. In other words, a presumption of ineligibility for asylum for migrants who don't follow certain prescribed pathways. Mr. Cisse, are you familiar with that proposed rule, and do you support it or oppose it?
Thank you so much for your questions. I've heard about the ruling, and which when one thing I know for sure, when individuals seeking protections, they have that credible fear, like what my family experienced. If I am in that situation, and America is the closest place, what I experience, I will definitely run and get to that place for safety. Because I always say this to people, like refugees, you are running when the grass under you is burning.
So you would oppose a rule that has a presumption of ineligibility for asylum?
I don't know the detail of that, but
Okay, that's fair enough.
yeah.
Mr. Canny, are you familiar with the proposed rule? And
Not familiar with the rules.
Okay,
such
I'm
that I can
striking
speak
out.
about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman.